This is the second part of a conversation I had with Alana Dunoff. She is an adjunct professor at Temple University and also an IFMA fellow and instructor and strategic facility planner for AFD Professional Services. We talked about FM degrees and how FMs can benefit from having an education program aimed directly at facilities management. So here's the second part of our conversation. You can see the first part of the conversation by clicking on the link here below in this article. So thanks again for joining us and enjoy the conversation. What are some examples of classes that comprise your program at Temple and similar FM programs across the country?
So while I don't know a lot of other FM programs, their course curriculum particularly, as I mentioned before, those core competencies, our program hits all of them. We sort of have to, and we look at making sure those are classes. And it's interesting because it might mean that a student is taking a class in the architecture program, which is where we are, but also taking it in the business school or even the hospitality school. So they are taking courses in different places to kind of round out their classes. So the classes that they take in the architecture department are, as part of the facilities program, are really facilities focused and kind of fill in the gaps. And so some of the, I think the more interesting classes that our students are taking are programming and planning. They, of course, take an intro to facilities management class, which tries to give them a foundation. There's a human environment, sort of environmental psychology course that really talks about the people in space and that human comfort component, which I think is also a great class. I teach two courses. One is a research methods class, which is really about data and how we use data and information in facilities management, which is really significant. And then I think the sort of the crescendo class that I believe a lot of academic universities do is for that final senior class, which is their capstone, which brings in all of the different things that they have learned into one course. And it's, for us, it's a semester long team-oriented project because FMs work in teams and that's not a solo experience. So they have this team project where they work with FM departments local to the Philadelphia area. So they volunteer their time and their resources, and the students work with them using their information and data in sort of an academic sort of series of problems and questions. So they get this really amazing sort of hands-on experience and exposure to an FM organization, and they walk out with a tremendous amount of confidence and knowledge, sort of getting what facilities management really is.
Finally, what advice do you give to prospective degree candidates who are interested in an FM degree?
So I think I have a couple different pieces of advice I've been collecting over the years. The first one is that FM is a continuously evolving profession. As a profession, it's been around for about maybe 40 years, sort of on the books, but it's always been evolving. As long as there's buildings, there's people who are planning, managing, and taking care of those buildings. So if you're interested in a profession that is constantly evolving, as the world constantly evolves, because we see that in FM. Every time there's something significant that happens, like, I don't know, a pandemic, we learn something new in FM and figure out how to manage that for our buildings and our organizations. So it's constantly changing. They say that one of the things that FMs love most about their job is that no 2 days are the same. So if you like that kind of sort of craziness and chaos sometimes, that's a great reason to be in the profession. You also have to really like people and buildings and being able to manage multiple projects and sort of get into the thick of things. And so if that's something that really appeals to you, I think it's also great. And then the other thing I'm going to say is that right now there is a huge gap in FM for people. And so there are lots of jobs out there. And if a stable career and something that's really sustainable is of interest, my advice is FM, because our students right now are making between low 50s to high 60s, which is pretty darn great in, just out of college. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. So it's a field and an industry that grows and gives you a ton of stability and opportunity in every different industry, because you can be in facilities at a sports stadium, in corporate America, work for an airport. So there's so much variety that makes it also, I think, a really interesting and dynamic career.
And I guess just one kind of note about that too, Alana, continuing education, there's obviously opportunities that if you could just talk a little bit about that to maybe, some managers who have heard about this before, maybe not as familiar with what the situation is and how that can benefit your education knowledge, increase your knowledge base.
So I have been in academics for over 20 some years. I am a staunch believer in the power of education. And for FM, of course, we have these academic programs, but there are several really great FM credentials that help those who maybe don't have a degree, which we said before, a lot of people don't have a degree in facilities management, but helps sort of even the playing field for them, giving them the information perhaps in areas that they're not so strong in. Someone comes in with a strong trades background, which is fantastic. They know everything about building systems, but maybe they don't know anything about finance or budget. So these types of learning opportunities are a great way to help elevate each person who works for you. And I believe the stronger and smarter your team is, the better the work is that you do. So, I mean, I can sing that phrases all day long, but I think learning, giving that opportunity to your staff is also investing in them, and they see that, and then they'll stay, which is another issue that people are really struggling with, right? How do we keep our people here? Give them opportunity to learn and grow, and they will stay and reward you with all their new knowledge.
Well, great. Well, I enjoyed the conversation today. Thanks again for joining us, Alana, and everybody else joining us. Thanks for joining us today, and enjoy your day.